Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service through a special partnership with Alaska Public Media. It is Friday, February 18th, 2022. If ever you have any specific questions or something you wish to share with me, particularly an interesting photo from where you're at, you can reach me at peter.chan@noaa.gov. And if you want additional weather information, you can go online to weather.gov. It brings you up to a map of the continental U.S. with Alaska and Hawaii off in the lower left, and you can click on this map. It's a point-and-click map. You can see an area of red highlighted there along the northern U.S. Canadian border. That's a blizzard warning in northwest Minnesota and the eastern Dakotas. An Alberta Clipper low pressure system is sweeping there through the northern plains, upper Great Lakes, producing blizzard conditions. And that's just one of many things you can check out when you go to this map. You can look up what the weather is like for friends and family anywhere in the country. Well, looking at our headlines, avalanche warning remains in effect for Hatcher Pass north of the Anchorage area here through 7 a.m. Saturday. Now there is an avalanche warning through early this evening for around Valdez and Thompson Pass. Whether or not that'll be extended, I'm not able to get that most current information in before the recording of the show, but certainly check it out if you're going to be recreating in those areas over the weekend. High wind warning now has been issued for the central Aleutians, a high wind watch for the eastern Aleutians, and that's for Saturday night into Sunday. Across the Panhandle, we are looking for conditions to dry out over the weekend, Saturday through Monday. It's been a very active weather pattern for those folks after some record precipitation here over the past week and a half. It's looking like they may get some breaks in the cloud cover that could lead to some areas of fog starting Sunday morning, more likely by Monday morning. And then overall, we're going to see increasing milder temperatures and an influx of moisture working its way across the southwest and western portion of the state as we go into next week and next weekend. Well, here are the current advisories. We have a winter weather advisory that's going to remain in effect overnight into early Saturday morning for the central Alaska range, including Denali Park entrance there and Healy. The other areas to the north, winter weather advisories will be allowed to expire early this evening. We still have a wind chill advisory in effect overnight into Saturday morning for the northwest coast, including Point Hope, Point Lay, and Wainwright for wind chills that could be down around 50 below. And then there's that little area red there north of Anchorage. That's the Hatcher Pass avalanche warning. And then there are the high wind warnings for the central Aleutians Saturday night into Sunday, and then a high wind watch for the eastern Aleutians for Saturday night into Sunday afternoon. And we are expecting, as a strong low lifts out of the North Pacific, kind of pivots through the western half of the Aleutians, it's going to create strong winds that could gust around hurricane force upwards to 75 miles an hour in those areas. So batten down the hatches if you're there in Dutch Harbor. Just be aware that those stronger winds will be arriving Saturday night into Sunday morning. Here's a quick check of some FAA cameras across the area. We're going to go way up in the northwest. Red Dog. It's mostly sunny with a temperature of 3 above. Keep in mind, you're going to see some more cloud cover as warmer air heads your way next week. That warmer air will also bring some snow with it, but it's not going to be as cold as it has been in the past couple of weeks. Chevac, there we'll see areas of light snow and fog this afternoon. Temperature 9 above in the southwest portion there of the state, the lower Yukon Delta. And also we'll be seeing some more precipitation and milder temperatures as we go into next week. Cold Bay had the state's high temperature yesterday at 49. This afternoon, some broken cloud cover, temperatures at least in the lower 40s. And over in South Central, Palmer, melting continues, not just in Palmer, but the Anchorage Bowl, as temperatures remain above freezing. 37 this afternoon, getting rather sloppy out there on the roadways with big puddles and the ice roads, some areas even down to the bare pavement. Quick check of the precipitation forecast over the weekend. We see things lightening up there through the interior, even the Panhandle, light there along the southwest coast. And then as we get into Sunday, Definitely quiet weather across the eastern half of the state into the Panhandle, so it's going to allow the Panhandle to dry out a bit here later this weekend and early next week. But off to the west, we'll see increasing moisture coming up into the Alaska Peninsula, the southwest coast, as a series of systems work their way on up along the western half of the state. That's going to bring milder and more moist air. Here we have on the satellite imagery this afternoon, we can see the thicker cloud cover beginning to work its way east there through the Panhandle. So look for the precipitation that's been falling to continue to remain on the light side and taper off. Still some pockets of light snow up there along the Alaska Range, but at least things are beginning to wind down. And as you look on the weather map, we have a frontal boundary across the southern third of the state with a few areas of weak low pressure. Still some areas of mainly light snow, but temperatures are warmer on the south side of this front, especially heading down through Cook Inlet and along the coast. Temperatures are above freezing, and we have a few pockets of mixed precipitation or a little light rain along the coast. The next main weather feature, though, is low pressure. One of them are coming up there right now in the western Aleutians. The main player, though, will be arriving later on this weekend as it comes up out of the North Pacific. We continue to see kind of a lingering area of low pressure in the vicinity of the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound overnight into early Saturday morning, and then it just kind of washes out with a weak low up there, northern Panhandle, southern Yukon on Saturday. But definitely the precipitation will be tapering off, just a few lighter showers there in the Panhandle. But then there's a stronger low that's off to the southwest of the Aleutians, and that is going to be lifting northward on Sunday and deepen. It will drop down below 970 millibars, and that's why there are those high wind warnings and watches for the central and eastern Aleutians for Saturday night into Sunday. There could be hurricane force gusts associated with the system. Big surge of warmer, moist air coming northward through the eastern half of the Bering Sea up along the Alaska Peninsula into the southwest coast. That'll give another round of some heavier snows on the west side of the state, so stay tuned to later forecast regarding that. But temperatures Saturday morning will stay above freezing, generally mid-30s in the Panhandle, and generally even upper 20s, near 30 degrees, near the freezing mark there across south central. I expect temperatures again to be above freezing, Anchorage area southward, generally upper 30s, around 40 in the Panhandle. And Sunday morning, maybe just slightly cooler there as we get on up toward the Copper River Basin, but still generally for this time of year, temperatures are above normal. And afternoon highs on Sunday should reach the lower 40s on the outer areas of the Panhandle there at Sitka, Craig, and Ketchikan, as well as look at 45 there at Kodiak City. And up in the north, the coldest air remains along the north slope, Arctic coast, 20s and some 30s below. The state's low temperature this Friday morning was 33 below at New Exit, and that area once again will be the cold spot Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon highs will stay cold along the north slope and Arctic coast, teens and 20s below, but at least moderating to above zero into the single digits along the Yukon River. And Sunday morning lows will be coldest again along the north slope and Arctic coast, and a little bit there toward Arctic Village and Fort Yukon, around 25 below or so. And daytime highs start to creep upward around 10 degrees, even back up into the 20s. Eamonnok could see temperatures in the upper 20s there by Sunday. Now Saturday morning, lows are going to be still a bit below zero along the Yukon River, but coming upward along and just west of the Alaska Range and above freezing along the Alaska Peninsula into the Aleutians. Saturday afternoon, a push of mild air will keep those temperatures in the 40s along the Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. Still chilly, though, along Norton Sound, single digits above zero, but at least temperatures Sunday morning will be steady to rising. And as we go into Sunday afternoon, we will see temperatures above freezing pressing northeastward up through the southwest interior, with even warmer air expected here as we go through the upcoming week into the next weekend. And this extended temperature outlook for February 24th through the 28th, through the end of the month, shows a very good chance of above to much above normal temperatures there. Bethel on up through Nome, Kotzebue, and much of the state will see temperatures average above normal. Going into early March, this is the period February 26th through March 4th, we see a continuation above normal temperatures centered on the western and northern side of the state. So we don't expect any really cold weather compared to areas in the north of what they've been experiencing. And overall, precipitation is going to stay above normal, not just in south central areas around Cook Inlet, say Prince William Sound, westward into the southwest interior, But as we go into the end of the month and the beginning of March, we would expect the southwest part and south central areas of the state to see above normal precipitation continue as we see these occasional North Gulf low pressure systems work their way across the Bering and up into the Alaska Gulf, and that's what's going to keep this pattern going now as we head into the end of the month in early March.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, let's go on now to your flight weather. And if you are planning a flight Saturday into Sunday, we'll continue to see weak low pressure linger across the Gulf on Saturday. That's going to keep IFR conditions going along the Alaska range back down through the Panhandle as moisture did push northward at least through the latter half of this past week. And so as a result, that lingers there, especially in through and around the Alaska range, also back out toward the eastern Aleutians. And as we go through the day on Saturday, we still expect IFR conditions to linger around the Alaska range, though improved to MVFR in the Panhandle, and then we have areas of IFR along the southwest coast in through the central Alaska Peninsula in response to another push of milder air. By Sunday, we continue to see IFR conditions not as widespread along the Alaska range, a little pocket there up into the northern Panhandle. But as another low pressure works its way up through the western half of the Aleutians, that's going to force another frontal system. And we'll expect IFR conditions Sunday morning around Bristol Bay. And as that front arcs north and eastward Sunday afternoon, we expect IFR conditions to exist there across parts of the southwest interior, Bristol Bay down toward at least the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, west of the Alaska Range. And on Saturday, Anaktuvuk as well as Adigan passes will see VFR conditions. Further south and west, we start out the day IFR at Lake Clark and Merrill there, especially on the west side of the Alaska Range, improving to MVFR as we go into the afternoon. A little further northwestward, Rainy Pass will remain IFR on Saturday, as will Windy Pass. But the further south you fly of Windy Pass, expect to have MVFR conditions there on Saturday. Same thing at Isabel Pass. Generally, IFR conditions hold Saturday, but MVFR conditions as you fly further south of the south entrance. Mentasta Pass should also just hold on to IFR conditions on Saturday. And Tanita Pass will begin the day with IFR conditions becoming MVFR. And generally speaking, we expect Portage Pass to remain MVFR throughout the day on Saturday. Further eastward there into the northern Panhandle, Chilkoot and White will see IFR conditions give way to MVFR conditions by Saturday afternoon. And looking at the freezing levels, surface freezing line will retreat as far north as to in the inner areas there of the southwest and just inland from the coast of the northern Gulf, of course encompassing all of the Panhandle. And then we see aloft freezing levels bump up to as high as 6,000 feet over the central and eastern Aleutians. Greatest threat for icing, there's no real large areas of considerable moderate or severe icing to be concerned with, but pockets of isolated moderate icing will exist north of the Aleutians between 5 and 15,000 feet, between 2 and 10,000 feet around Bristol Bay, lower Kuskokwim Delta. And then out over the Panhandle, especially the southern Panhandle, between 4 and 14,000 feet. Upper level winds, 30,000 foot jet stream level. We do have anticyclonically curved, what we call anticyclonically curved jet that's going around a ridge of high pressure. You can see the ridge axis extend from the central part of the Alaska Peninsula down into the North Pacific. Winds around this feature as high as 130, 135 knots. Dropping down to 9,000 feet, we see a broad area of winds, the lower Gulf, northwesterly 65 knots, winds 60 knots there out over the eastern Bering, and then upwards to 70 knots from the southwest, just south of the Alaska Peninsula on the North Pacific side. And finally, 3,000 feet, broad area northwest winds, 30, 40 knots out over the Gulf. 40 to 50 knots south of the Alaska Peninsula in the North Pacific, and then some stronger winds out across the west side of the Bering, out of the east-northeast, 50 to 55 knots ahead of that low pressure that's southwest of the far Bering Sea. And looking at turbulence, there'll be pockets of turbulence, surface to 5,000 feet there, south of the Brooks Range through the middle upper Yukon River Valley, also some pockets there in the central southern panhandle from the surface to 6,000 feet, and then extending out through the Alaska Peninsula, surface to 4,000 feet, and then finally trailing off through the eastern and into the central Aleutians from surface to 3,000 feet. So that wraps up your flight weather. If you do have a flight planned, be sure to check the latest conditions and forecast, and if you are able to get out, have a safe flight.
Why is plastic marine debris so common? We know there's trash in the ocean. Unfortunately, a lot of it is plastic. We find plastic everywhere, from the ocean floor to surface. The plastics are all shapes and sizes and all different types. We find plastics on beaches, and also inside animals' stomachs or wrapped around their bodies. That's bad news for our ocean and the animals that live in it and near it. It's also bad news for us. A recent study from the University of Georgia estimated that 8 million metric tons of plastic trash enters the ocean every year. That's like putting 5 bags filled with plastic on every foot of coastline in the world. That's a lot of plastic in the ocean, and it's there because, well, we put it there. The 5 most common items found during the International Coastal Cleanup are plastic cigarette butts, food wrappers, plastic beverage bottles, plastic bottle caps, and plastic straws and drink stirrers. Notice anything in common with those? It's a lot of single-use, disposable plastic. It goes without saying, we produce too much waste. That waste ends up in the ocean when we litter or don't recycle. Plastic is an important part of our modern lives. We use it for a lot of good things. But we need to take responsibility for how much we use every day and where it goes when we're done with it. The 3 R's can help, and it's up to every single one of us to practice them. Reduce your use of disposable plastic. That's anything you use once and throw away. Just use less. Reuse disposable plastics when possible. A plastic bottle makes a great coin piggy bank or watering can. The possibilities are endless. Recycle anything that can be recycled so it stays out of landfills, where trash can blow away. Ocean plastic is a huge problem that's only going to get worse. Unless we change our ways, we can do better for the ocean and for us. Why is plastic marine debris so common? We know there's trash in the ocean. Unfortunately, a lot of it is plastic. We find plastic everywhere, from the ocean floor to surface. The plastics are all shapes and sizes and all different types. We find plastics on beaches, and also inside animals' stomachs or wrapped around their bodies. That's bad news for our ocean and the animals that live in it and near it. It's also bad news for us. A recent study from the University of Georgia estimated that 8 million metric tons of plastic trash enters the ocean every year. That's like putting 5 bags filled with plastic on every foot of coastline in the world. That's a lot of plastic in the ocean, and it's there because, well, we put it there. The 5 most common items found during the International Coastal Cleanup are plastic cigarette butts, food wrappers, plastic beverage bottles, plastic bottle caps, and plastic straws and drink stirrers. Notice anything in common with those? It's a lot of single-use, disposable plastic. It goes without saying, we produce too much waste. That waste ends up in the ocean when we litter or don't recycle. Plastic is an important part of our modern lives. We use it for a lot of good things. But we need to take responsibility for how much we use every day and where it goes when we're done with it. The 3 R's can help, and it's up to every single one of us to practice them. Reduce your use of disposable plastic. That's anything you use once and throw away. Just use less. Reuse disposable plastics when possible. A plastic bottle makes a great coin piggy bank or watering can. The possibilities are endless. Recycle anything that can be recycled so it stays out of landfills, where trash can blow away. Ocean plastic is a huge problem that's only going to get worse. Unless we change our ways, we can do better for for the ocean and for us.
What is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? Well, first, let's talk about what it's not. It's not a floating island of trash like a garbage dump or a landfill. It's also not the only patch. They exist all throughout the ocean, and the Pacific Garbage Patch just happens to be the most famous. Garbage patches are large areas of marine debris concentration that are formed by rotating ocean currents called gyres, kind of like big whirlpools that suck things in. A garbage patch is made up of tiny plastic pieces called microplastics that are less than 5 millimeters long. It's more like pepper flakes swirling in a soup than something you can skim off the surface. You might come across some larger items like plastic bottles, but it's possible to sail through a garbage patch and not see anything. And they're a big problem for the ocean and us. People often ask why we can't just scoop up all the marine debris in the ocean. And the answer is, unfortunately, it's just not that simple. The first challenge is the sheer size of these garbage patches. They're huge. They're constantly moving with ocean currents. And there's debris from the ocean surface all the way down to the sea floor. Not to mention all the marine life we would disrupt if we tried to just scoop up debris. So what can we do? Well, the ultimate solution is prevention. And we need to keep that as our highest priority. We can reduce, reuse, and recycle to keep trash out of the ocean in the first place. And we can participate in things like shoreline cleanups. It's a lot easier to deal with debris before it gets to the ocean. Because until we stop marine debris at the source, we'll just be cleaning it up forever.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back to the show and looking at the sea ice edge. Today we see an extensive area of ice throughout the central northern Bering along the southwest coast. And the most notable thing that's going to happen here through the weekend is that a strong low is going to emerge from the North Pacific, cutting through the eastern half of the Aleutians, bringing storm force winds with hurricane force wind gusts. So this could cause the ice to actually retreat back northward later on this weekend, especially as we go through Sunday and even into early next week, as an overall milder push of air occurs across the Alaska Peninsula and on the west side of the state. So looking at the east side, though, in the Panhandle, winds will be out of the southeast to south 10 to 15 knots in the inner channels. Waves generally 2 to 3 feet, maybe a little higher down around Metlakatla there. Dixon Entrance 6-7 feet. Generally westerly winds 25 knots, Craig up through Gustavus along the Gulf Coast with waves of 12 feet, and then winds do turn northeasterly at Yakutat, offshore flow to 20 knots. On Sunday, drier weather prevails across the Panhandle, winds out of the north-northwest, inner canals, strongest winds 25 knots, gusts to 40 knots there in Lynn Canal. And then along the outer coast of the Gulf, 15 to 20 knot winds from the northwest and waves 10 to 12 feet. Yakutat on off toward the east, winds will be out of the east at 10 to 15 knots, waves 7 to 8 feet. In the northwest Gulf, winds will generally be out of the west, 25 to 30 knots. Off of the Kenai, waves may be as high as 10 feet. Prince William Sound, northwest winds 15 knots, waves 2 feet, and Lower Cook Inlet there at the mouth, westerly winds 25 knots, waves 7 feet. And on Sunday, kind of a mix of winds, northeasterly at 10 knots, 2-foot waves in Prince William Sound. Winds will be out of the northeast to east through Lower Cook Inlet at 15 knots and waves 3-4 feet. Somewhat mixed off the coast of the Kenai, southeast to southwest, 15 to 20 knots, waves 6-7 feet. Across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, winds will be westerly in the vicinity of Kodiak Island, 25 to 30 knots, 6-foot wave Shelikof Strait. As you get offshore in the North Pacific, Western Gulf, waves generally 10 to 12 feet. Look for southeasterly winds on the Bering side, 25 knots in the ice-free areas, waves 7 feet there north of Cold Bay. Sunday, winds will be out of the south-southwest from Kodiak Island down along the North Pacific side of the peninsula, 25 to 30 knots. And then we see winds picking up from the south 35 knots there, especially to the west of Cold Bay False Pats, and as you get out into the lower Bering storm force winds across the eastern Aleutians. So Saturday, look for winds across the central and eastern Aleutians to be out of the south around 30 knots. Waves 15 to 19 feet on the Pacific side, 9 to 12 feet on the Bering side. But here comes that system center of low pressure passing up through the western half of the Aleutians into the central Bering, and a core of storm force winds with hurricane force gusts will lift across the eastern half of the Aleutians Saturday night and during the day on Sunday, including Adak eastward through just west there of Dutch Harbor. Look for 50 to 55 knot southerly storm force winds with hurricane force gusts possible. And then across the area, west and southwest coast Saturday, northeast winds 15 to increasing to 25 knots by the time you get out to St. Matthew over the ice. Easterly 30 knot winds around St. Paul, St. George. And then on Sunday, here comes those strong winds up from the south. St. Paul, St. George, 50 knot south storm force winds, waves building to 26 feet. That will allow that ice to start to retreat northward as we go through the day Sunday and into Monday. Across the Arctic coast, winds will be out of the northeast around 10 to 15 knots, accelerating to 25 to 30 knots through the lower Chukchi Sea. And then on Sunday, winds will generally be out of the east-northeast along the Arctic coast and east to northeast through the lower Chukchi Sea, though a bit stronger, 15 to 25 knots, accelerating out of the northeast along the west side of the Seward Peninsula and through the Bering Strait to the north side of St. Lawrence. Winds will be out of the northeast at 35 knots. And here's a quick check. Weather map overnight. One area of low pressure in the far western Aleutians, another weak low around the Kenai, Prince William Sound. Saturday afternoon, system weakens there through the Gulf Coast. Things begin to dry out along the Panhandle, but then a stronger low is going to deepen coming up out of the North Pacific, and as it tracks through the west side or the western part of the central Aleutians, it'll deepen to below 970 millibars, and that's what's going to create those storm force winds with hurricane gusts Saturday night into Sunday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.